give me a thumbs up where I should. Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to Stratum V2 and Bitcoin Design Call. The goal of this call is for us as designers to get introduced to Stratum version 2 protocol, understand it, and then collaborate and create visual branding for this. And you'll soon see why it is very interesting and very underrated protocol in my opinion. And as you learn, you'll probably also understand the importance of it. So I'm Pavlonex. We have a bunch of people here willing to learn about Stratum V2 and help kickstart the visual design of the project. So I'll just do a little bit of introduction and then maybe we can have some questions. And I have 40 slides, but they're very short. I promise it won't be too long, hopefully. So I wanted to really go a little bit of deep into things. So if at any point some of you guys want to speak, raise hands, unmute yourself, because at this point I really do not see your reactions or screens, or if my Russian accent or whatever you want to call it becomes weird, just let me know. So I call this presentation Introduction to Stratum V2. It's by Pavlonex, but I mostly stole everything from Rachel. She's also working on Stratum V2 and learned a lot from her, Filippo, and Chris. They are also working on the protocol. And yeah, so I first wanted to ask you guys a question. And do you know who selects the transactions that go into a block? If anybody wants to reply, feel free to unmute yourself and let me know.
Mining pool operators, or I would take a guess.
Yes, Stephen. I was hoping we'll get the answer miners, because that's the most common answer that I get, at least on the meetups that I recently visited. But actually, yes, it's the mining pool operators that get to choose currently which transactions go into a block. And this was like the most interesting thing to me as I learned about how current protocol works. So very briefly, what is Stratum version 2? Well, it's very simply a mining protocol. So what is a mining protocol, and what is a protocol to begin with? So protocol is basically a set of rules which define how things or computers talk to each other. A mining protocol obviously defines how mining devices or miners communicate with the mining pools, but also with the Bitcoin network. Basically, it looks like this. Yo, let's fucking go, let's fucking go. So they communicate between themselves. And soon you will realize that actually we can really see how they are communicating. And that's also an interesting point. But why should we care about Stratum version 2? That's also the first question I also asked, like, why do I need to care? It sounded to me very weird, and I thought that somebody was shilling altcoins to me. But you probably don't care, and you care more about this cute little rabbit that I found on the internet. So let's go and follow that rabbit down the rabbit hole, and I assure that soon enough you will maybe a little bit more care about the Stratum version 2. So let's dive a little bit deep into it, but it's not very too much. It's just for us to understand the basics. So to understand things first, network hash rate. It's basically a measurement of computational power to the Bitcoin network contributed by the mining devices or by the miners. And historically speaking, the network hash rate is a number go up technology, like the Bitcoin itself. It just keeps going up. I won't go too deep into this, but in her presentation, Rachel actually compares the growth of the hash rate with the protocols that got implemented. So to sum things up, basically, whenever there was a spike in a hash rate, historically, we did have certain bump in the change of the protocol. But the current protocol, which powers the basically the mining infrastructure, is still used, and I think it's from 2012, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's from 2012. So things have not changed for quite a bit, and the hash rate and the way in which mining industry works has changed significantly. So these are now some stats just to illustrate this growth, but I won't go too much into it. But basically, it's a very big increase in a very short period of time. And now that we know what the mining protocol is, now that we know a little bit of hash rate and significant hash rate increase, Let's see what's the protocol used today. So as I said, we had like a Bitcoin client. You could basically mine with it in the past. Then we had Getwork and Get block template. And as I said, Stratum version 1 is the one used today. So Stratum V2, V1 was created with Slush, and it's still used today. I did plan to put a little bit of history here, but yeah, I forgot. So next slide. Miners interact, as I said, and I know that maybe I will be talking a little bit too much now, but if anybody has questions, just feel free to unmute and yell at me because, yeah, I may be rambling. So, but there is a point to this slide as well. Miners interact amongst themselves in and to the pool by sending messages, basically, and these are some of the messages that miners exchange. Um, Rachel actually made an excellent slide here, which I completely stole from her. And it illustrates how miners communicate. And I'm not sure if you can see because it's not really high quality, but you can actually read the messages that the miners and the pools exchange between themselves. So in a way, these messages are plain text. And quite unfortunately, that's how miners communicate. They use JSONRPC, which is basically human readable way to communicate between themselves, which means that they're vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attack. So I'm not sure if you guys are shocked, but I was very shocked when I learned this, that it is so easy to basically, attack a mining pool and hijack some of its hash power. Of course, not all of it because it would be too obvious, but you can do this and basically, of course, steal some of the rewards as well. Basically, you'll be mining for you. And it was shocking to me to learn this, that in 2022, miners still communicate via plain text. And there was a reason actually for this, because at that point of time in 2012, the reason why they did this, why Slush did this, because it was very easy for him to, and to people who minded that at that time, to troubleshoot issues, because the messages were, plain text. It was very easy to troubleshoot whatever problems there were. But now, when mining is like a totally new industry, it is a little bit scary to know that they communicate amongst themselves in a very insecure way. So yeah, that's basically somebody listening to you saying, let's fucking go, and I want to work. So let's put this in our designer bucket. And bucket. Sorry, this is very lame way of putting things through, but it has there is a point to this. I just want to showcase you like all the features that we need to think of as we design visual identity for the Stratum V2. So right now, Stratum version 1 is insecure for miners. Also, Stephen completely ruined my point here, but yeah, actually, it is the mining pools that allow people to. Um, it is the mining pools that actually get to choose which transaction go into a block. So only a handful of mining pools have this power to censor transaction, basically choose what goes into network or not. So yeah, individual miners contribute hashes to the pool, but the pool itself constructs the block template and determines which transactions go into them. As I said, we already know this. It was very shocking for me as well. So insecure for miners, but also insecure for the network itself. And yeah, this presentation is not basically just bashing on version 1, but I really want to emphasize like the benefits that version 2 will bring, because at the end you will see version 2 fixes all of these points that I'm making now, and it may seem a little bit tedious, but we will really need to think about all of these improvements as we design things for Stratum V2. So this is basically how miners communicate among themselves. There is a lot of messages being sent back and forth, and Stratum version 2 fixes that as well. But to avoid all of this constant sending of the messages, miners basically use a proxy server. So that saves a little bit of bandwidth as well, but also I guess it also improves a little bit of privacy. But maybe Filippo can maybe later correct me if I was mistaken on the privacy part. So miners use a proxy server as well, but the point is that for Stratum version 1, the proxy server is not in the protocol itself. It's not standardized, which means that we have multiple iterations and multiple projects and multiple proxies, and they all do different things. They're all, made by different people, patching their own, things that they want to do. Proxy server not being standardized is also one of an issues of this protocol that currently most of miners use. So as I said, miners connect directly to a pool. This for a large operation isn't scalable, eats a lot of bandwidth. Proxy saves this, but proxy isn't implemented. So there is a lot of room, and I think Rachel calls it, there is a lot of room for improvisation, which means anybody can, do things as they wish, and there is a lack of standardization for Stratum version 1 when it comes to this proxy server, which is basically, an intermediary between the two. Sorry, between the miners and the pool.
I have a question. How these pools are formed, if you mind just explaining quickly?
So are you asking like what a mining pool is, or?
Why we have such like few pools in a sense? Like how are they formed?
Okay, so I can try to answer that. I'm not sure how they are formed, but the reason why people mine in pools is that currently, like in the beginning, when Bitcoin was, firstly released, people could mine themselves by using their own laptops even. But as the network hash power grew, people basically, there was no way for you to actually get the reward by mining yourself. So as hash power grows, there is a lot of competition. So people basically group into, I like to call it cartels. So they group in a group of miners, and then they share the reward, because it is much easier. Because at the end of the day, mining is like participating in this lottery. So basically, the more people participate, the higher chances are of them earning a reward, basically. So people group into these pools so that they can have constant stream of revenue and not just like gamble alone. And does anybody want to correct me on this one? Maybe.
I think that sounds really good, and I think I would just add to like Millie, you asked how are mining pools formed. Well, for a lot of the major pools, say Slush Pool, F2 Pool, I think Marathon has a pool now. Typically, you go to their website. So if you're a miner, you want to join a pool. So you find the website of the pool, and they'll usually provide you instructions on the website of how you join their pool. Sometimes I think it might just be like use this address to connect to our pool. Other times they want you to fill out a form and kind of apply to join the pool. But that's what that process looks like.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
essentially,
thanks.
yeah. Just to
Go
clarify
ahead.
that.
No, go ahead, Bosch. Did you want?
No, like a pool's like essentially a business, yeah. Like it's set up like a business. Like they make revenue from people participating in their pool.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I misunderstood the question there, Millie. Sorry, but thanks, you guys, for iterating that better. So as I said, let's continue. And again, if there are any questions, just feel free to interrupt, because I don't see the screen or reactions or anything. So as I said, Stratum version 1 is inefficient, not flexible, and not standardized. So we put that into design bucket as well, as I call it. But yeah, so a little bit of ranting on my end. This is the part where, if there are any questions, maybe we can go ahead, and then I will introduce Stratum version 1. And I know that I'm ranting too much, and I'm sorry for that. But do we have any questions?
I think I have like more question, like more about Stratum V2, like why is it not more known and that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure I should ask that question at this moment.
Yes, that's basically what I want to learn myself as well. I can talk about it as after I introduced Stratum version 2, because I've been talking to miners. Like I joined, mining was never something that interested me, but after learning about Stratum version 2, I really become interested more in it, and I went into mining groups on Telegram and started asking questions, and I got so many different answers. Maybe I can talk when I introduce user groups. Maybe I could talk a little bit about that because there are so funny conspiracy theories around it. But basically, I would say lack of education because the protocol has been around for a while. It's being developed, but I would say lack of education is the biggest problem, in my opinion. And Filippo, do you maybe know why it is not more widely used? Would you say that education is mostly the problem here, or? Yeah, I'm not sure if he's with us because I do not see my screen. But basically,
if I'm thinking.
No, I'm saying that actually I don't know why, but maybe because it was sponsored by just one company, and that wasn't very well received by the community. And this is one of the reasons that we are doing this project that is independent.
yes, I got called slash full shill just by asking what do you guys think about Stratum version 2. And yes, so I would say, yeah, basically maybe lack of education, but also maybe lack of more open source effort in a way, and community based maybe. Yeah. So yeah, focus on a single company also makes sense why it was not adopted, because a few miners actually told me I'm not implementing, it's a power play by slash pull, which I really didn't understand at that point, but maybe they were referring to that as well. So anyway,
Another
yeah.
point to add on that about why this is totally a guess on my part, but if we're talking about building a brand for Stratum, we have to think about our target audience. And if you look at the kinds of businesses that operate mining equipment these days, we're not talking about a situation where it's a computer programmer operating a laptop out of their bedroom anymore. It's these large industrial operations, and so for a business that's operating a mining farm, I think that the two problems that probably weigh on their minds every single day are like energy cost or energy availability, or just like the day-to-day operations of keeping a facility maintained with all the equipment running in peak conditions. So it may just also be that these kind of like protocol things aren't as apparent and visible to them as the kind of real world challenges they face on a daily basis.
Yeah, and also I worked a lot with merchants, and we have similar situation with BTC Pay Server. Like they usually say, if ain't broke, I won't fix it. Like I don't want to debug things and things like that. I just want something that works. So it can be a little bit more of that. Like they're always resistant to change for businesses, basically, because yeah, if something gets broken or they have to debug it, it's like basically they're losing revenue. So it can also be, and I'm also guessing, Steven, I'm not sure, but we'll maybe figure out as we do a little bit of more user research and just talk to people and just share basically talk to people about Stratum version 2. I learned a lot, and I can talk a little bit later about conspiracies that I also received. But anyway, I've been talking too much. So Stratum version 2, basically, we're introducing the solution to the problems, and there are quite a little bit of more problems, but I focused on these because I found them the most interesting and maybe the ones that we should emphasize the most. So Stratum version 2 adds encryption layer to communication between the miners. It's called the noise protocol framework. Doesn't matter too much, but I just wanted to add it there. So the communication bit is now encrypted, so there is no that middleman that can intercept basically and learn about the messages or whatnot. So the protocol also gives miner the option to select these transactions. And if you remember about all the messages of pools and them censoring, this means that miners can switch to selecting their own transactions. So that means this option is also optional, so there is more flexibility to it. And the big picture, this is also from Rachel's and Galaxy Digital Research, the screenshot I'm just sharing. But basically, there is way more metrics and options here that are better in Stratum version 2 than in version 1. And I will link to all of these if you guys want to dive a little bit more, but I wanted to emphasize like the ones that I personally thought were the most important reason why this is needed. But there is like quite a lot of things and quite a lot of improvements that we should emphasize throughout our website design, and maybe not throughout the visual branding itself, but like all these minor things should be mentioned on the website itself. So now we have Stratum version 1 design bucket. It's secure for miners and the network. It is efficient, flexible, and standardized. And there are quite a lot of other things that fit into this bucket. So how can we help Stratum version 2? That's also what I asked Filippo when I first saw him, like, what can we do? And it was mostly like me figuring out how I can help the community there, which is growing. And I'm very proud of it growing because it's very awesome work and they deserve to have like a bigger community. So what we can do is have basically design a visual branding for Stratum version 2, logo, visuals for social media, maybe some educational content. It really depends how deep and how much time we wanted to dedicate and how many people basically contribute to this cause, because I'm giving you introduction to the project and then we will figure out who wants to basically help us with this. And besides visual branding, a design for a website and a website is also needed as well. So this is how website currently looks, and I didn't know Filippo will be on the call, so maybe he will now rage at me for showcasing his website design. But this is how current website work is. It's just basically a lot of links that lead to educational resources, but for somebody who is here to learn about Stratum, you cannot really learn at a single place. And I guess that is one of our goals, gather all of these, because there is information out there about Stratum version 2, but it's not on a single place, and it is not presented in a way that it is very easy to consume. So besides that, I recently created the Twitter, so give it a follow. It's basically no design at all. It's all Twitter defaults. So it would be very helpful to get these as well. I'm not sure about the logo and things, but you guys are designers, you will know, and I'm sure we will get some very awesome ideas for this. So Stephen earlier asked questions, who are we designing for? So it is correct, and I want Filippo to also chime on this, but manufacturers are the ones that need to push this protocol through, because it is the easiest if miners arrive with it implemented already, or giving the ability to people to add what they actually want or use the protocol, make it easier basically for the miners. So in a way, it's chicken and egg problem as well, because manufacturers need to be pushed, but they are usually, their customers influence them. So that's miners, and they need to push them. But then miners need to understand like benefits that this brings to them as well, all the efficiencies, all the security it brings to them. But they're maybe too busy running business. They just, if it works, I won't fix it. So in a way, it also users that, and I got actually this answer from one of the groups mining, which I asked like, what can we do? Who needs to push it? And they told me like, well, it was a little bit in an odd way, but they told me vote with your money. So don't use pools that don't want to implement Stratum version 2. So that can also be one way to push things. So just users sharing education to miners, and then it being pushed to manufacturers. So there is quite a lot of users here that we want to tackle. And Filippo, is this correct? Would you say that like this is the correct way of me framing things?
Can you hear me?
Is this correct? Like, are the
yeah, I think so. Also, maybe we should think also to the pools, because if the pool didn't implement it, then the miner are forced to use just one pool. That is the only one that have implemented it. And the reality is that it's only partially implemented also on /pool.
Yes, that's a good point. So there is like one more user group, which is basically mining pools as well, that we should also consider as a target audience. So, like, I think this is like good also way to prioritize things, because a website should speak to user, but it should also speak to miner, manufacturer, and mining pool operators. So I was thinking maybe in the future, if we have some case studies, and things like that, it can also be helpful documentation for these larger enterprises to learn a little bit more, and because change their mind, because at the end of the day, version 2 will actually bring better performance and less use of resources and bandwidth, and it will eventually be more money for them, basically, without consuming too much resources. So they save money in a way. So these are the design considerations. I've been talking to the core devs of the Stratum, and it was mostly agreed that it should be something in a way flexible, but also minimal. We don't want to sell it. It's not a vacuum cleaner. We don't want to oversell on it. It's a protocol, so we need to treat it as such. The key point is that it needs to educate people about the key properties throughout design and basically give bullish case for Stratum version 2. I wanted to also include that it needs to tell a story and inform, but don't hype on it, because at the end of the day, people should be able to make their own decision based on the information that we provide, or metrics or data in the future. So I would just say go for something minimal, but also tend to tell a story, why it is needed, what are its what it does better, how it does it maybe, and at the end of the day, people should choose to basically decide for themselves, hopefully. Also, there are like quite a lot of parts in the Stratum itself. I did not want to go into it for this first meeting, but as Filippo said, there is Brains, which is developing basically a firmware, and they have like open and closed source portion of it. And then there is like an open source community mostly focused on creating a proxy server itself. But it's also like our goal is to educate people also about the protocol, but then we should give them links to all of these different places and all of these different basically adoption efforts for Stratum version 2. But I thought that this point that I made could be a little bit too much for this first meeting. So I guess the design process here, get to know with the project, and I hopefully managed to introduce it to you guys. Hopefully it's interesting to some of you enough to start contributing and get involved. I guess after we learn about the project, maybe we can design mock-ups and then review a few iterations. Then we will go to straight to version 2 community and present our ideas, and maybe they can vote of it, tell us if they like it or not, and then basically we go back and forth to improve. And at the end of the day, we will need to find a front-end dev maybe who can help us with the web pages and GitHub pages. Sorry, my pollen allergy is killing me, so I think that it's saying me like, come on, Pav, stop talking. We want to ask questions and have fun. At the end, I just wanted to point you to all of the resources, like Rachel panel on TabConf that she did, research that she did, also panel Steve Lee, Rachel and Jan. And yeah, thanks for Filippo, who is here with us. Chris, they're always out there answering my stupid questions, and I learned a lot from them. So I guess I can now stop sharing my screen, and maybe I overloaded you with information, but maybe it's good time to stop talking and just stop asking questions. And what the fuck, there are so many of you on the call. I did not know there are so many of you. So this is awesome to see all of you. So let me figure out how to stop sharing, and then maybe we can start talking. Filippo, can you give me a thumbs up? Was it a good introduction to Stratum version 2, or I butchered everything?
It was very good and precise.
Okay, thanks. So maybe I'm so glad that you're here, because now you can answer all of these questions that I probably wouldn't know how. So guys, yeah, can we start? Does anybody have any questions on the Stratum version 2 or process or whatever it is that we outlined?
Yes, I have a question. So we have all these like customers, miner, user, manufacturer. Which one will be the most important that would have the most impact on implementing Stratum V2 and pushing it forward?
What I think is that the key point is to have the manufacturer. But I would be more interested in informate the users and the users of Bitcoin of the importance of Stratum version 2.
Okay, so why would you prefer that instead of manufacturer?
Because I would prefer that because I think that if the ultimate user that are the one that use Bitcoin understand the importance of that, it's better than a small part know how this work and why it's important.
Okay, let me ask a follow-up questions. How can a user, for example, like me, I don't know, I don't understand how I can choose a specific mining pool that use Stratum V2. How do I know how to
if you are a miner, you mean? If you are mining and you want to choose a pool.
Okay, the users, you mean a miner, but not like everyone else. Like,
yeah, it's more the miner, the user, because yes, the user of Stratum V2 will be the miner.
Il problema è che noi abbiamo caricato la documentazione fotografica.
So basically, miners and users are not with different groups.
Sorry, I didn't hear you very well because there is some problem.
Yes, so the miners and the user are not a different group. They are the same, basically.
Yes, the miner and the user. I mean, the user are the miner, are the pools. Also, the pool are a user of Stratum V2.
All right. I just
the bigger group of miner is of user is the miners.
Okay, I just understood user as general Bitcoiner. That's why. But
no, I mean miner.
Ora lo controllo, ma dove dovrebbe essere caricato? No?
Yeah, I guess it's my fault for introducing that confusion because, in a way, Bitcoiners can only influence through education, because I think that the fact that users can vote and use pools that only use Stratum version 2 is a bit of wishful thinking, and I'm not sure if that can really happen. But I guess at the end of the day, things go crazy. It can happen, but yeah, I guess so. To put things into context, actually, miners are in a way users, but Bitcoiners are like regular people who may help with by learning about it and then basically pushing it through. As most things go in this community, and people learn about it, they realize why it is important or why it cares, and they spread the knowledge. So that can also be influential. But as Filippo mentioned, manufacturers or mining pools are the ones that we really want to influence.
Yeah, I have a thought, Pav, to your steps. I think I see one step missing is before you do mockups, you kind of need to figure out what the content should be. Otherwise, you're purely doing visual styling, right? You take what's there and you make it look more appealing, I guess. And that's a worthwhile thing, right? You come up with an identity, you visualize, make things visual, and it looks better, right? But to really address, to convince somebody that they should do this, then you need to think about the content. And you can do that in different ways. For example, if there's one success story that some mining pool switched over, you can just outline what they actually did, for example, and what benefit they had at the end. Like, I don't know, things are 10% more efficient, and what steps they took to kind of prevent problems during the switch or so. Or then you need to kind of shape the content, and those are two tasks that go together, but they're also kind of separate and usually done by separate people. I think the content shaping is more something that everybody works together.
So would you say it would be beneficial to have like some sort of basically text, from what I understood, and how we want to tell a story in order to design the actual website? Is that what you meant, or did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, I think that's something that the whole group can probably collaborate on, figure out what should go in on there, what should be is there actually, maybe there is all this content already there and it is just about styling, but maybe there is some content missing. Let's say we say people don't trust this because of whatever power play by slush pool. Like, can you talk about that? Can you address that somewhere? Or, there's maybe a little bit of lack. Some notes I took here. There's a lack of community focus. Can you write something about how you want more contributions or so, right? That's what like. If that's all there, then yeah, we can just focus on visual styling. We can go straight to doing mockups. But if that's not there, then we should, I don't know, create some Google Docs or so, or just figure that out.
And to piggyback off of what Christoph is saying, like, I think about it like as a content strategy thing. So, we've got our different, kind of people that website, manufacturers of mining equipment, pool operators, and then miners that are actually choosing which pools that they want to use. And each of these audiences has different kind of things that they want. So we need to think about the strategy of what specifically we're trying to communicate to each one of these audiences, and how we convince these audiences of what we're saying. So that's a content strategy part. And, I think if we approach first the strategy about how we want to talk to these different audiences, that will better inform the actual mockups and designs.
Okay, that makes quite a lot of sense. There is a lot of information about this because the devs are very good at documenting actually things. I was very surprised, but it was all hidden on the GitHub mostly. So it wasn't until the presentations and the research that I was able to find a little bit more info in one place. So I would say that we have quite a decent amount of content to work on that. So yeah, that makes quite a lot of sense. I'm happy to help with the content because obviously I cannot help you guys with the design, but I can probably help with the content and to structure things a little bit. So yeah, do you think that maybe I now know that there are like websites which have like different sections from different user groups. So maybe that can also be beneficial. Like you click, I don't know, mining pools, and then it's served content based on their persona or interest or things that may interest them can also maybe be beneficial. But yeah, I guess also just spreading the awareness at this point and just educating people is important, but also at the end, we really want to persuade people to adopt this. So that's very valuable feedback, guys. Thanks. I'm taking notes, so it's awesome. And yeah, Jitsi is freezing for me as well, so it's not only Bosch. So we just broke it. There is so much interest into Stratum that we broke Jitsi. So do we have more? Like, let's go.
Yes, I have another more question. So if I'm a miner and I want to install like Stratum V2, what's the process of that? Is there just like a company I go to and I install it? Like, how do we direct people to installing Stratum V2 from the website?
Okay. Right now, the only way to do that is to install in the miner, in the actual machine, the firmware from Brains. And for several machines is free. For several other is you have to pay for this firmware. That's right now. Then when producer of machine will implement the firmware directly in the specific the Stratum V2 firmware directly in the machine, it will be just be by that kind of machine. And the Blockstream and Block want to do that, so I think that other will follow.
Yeah, if I can give maybe an analogy which may not be correct, but think of it as you buying a phone. It comes with the software already installed. But if manufacturer allows, you can flash it with your own custom one which you want. But most people just go with what's already in it. So there is also like a compatibility issue in a way because, as Filippo said, not all miners, maybe older ones, aren't really compatible. That's also the feedback that miners gave me on Telegram, so maybe that's also something to consider. But ideally, it's not like a software that you install. It's basically you as a user just being able to either run it freely or it just comes by default, which is like the perfect scenario that we would love to have.
I have another question. Is there like some website that the Stratum V2 community is looking up to that feel they are doing a good job at explaining this type of things? It doesn't need to be a specific like mining website or anything, but just some inspiration out there that you guys felt was achieving what you're trying to achieve?
The Brains website does a good job. I'm not working on the
Yeah,
project, but I just had a bit of a read before the meeting, and yeah, they kind of lay things out pretty well. I linked it in the chat a bit higher up.
yeah, it's the only one that I'm aware of.
Yeah, at first I saw that website and I thought it was a Stratum V2 website, and I was like, but this is great. What do they need more? But yeah, they do a good job, I agree.
Yeah, that's a good example of, a company basically, they built in a way a protocol, and then now they, moved it to their own company website. But in a way, a free and open source protocol should have its own place to be, and that's like what we are also trying to achieve. And it's not that they're not against that as well, Philip. Right? They also gave us the green light. They were like, okay, it really needs to be like that. The protocol deserves to have like its own website. It should be like nested on our website. So that's why we are creating a site, because it's not just about one company, and that is actually the reason why people say it's a power play by Slushpool. It's because it's on their website. Most of the content is there as well. So that is where most confusion, I would say, also comes from.
I think maybe like a lot of people don't fully understand how Stratum V1 or like how mining in general works. So like just to be able to convey the technical details of how it works, and also what the shortcomings are, and what the benefits to you as a mining pool or as a miner would be if you go with Stratum V2. And then a thought that occurred to me was that like it'll take a while until a lot of people do this and until it is the default. But I think, like, from my understanding, having like a local proxy version to communicate with older equipment that you can't sort of, or like don't want to change, will still give you like 95% of the benefits in terms of like reduced bandwidth, security, and being able to choose your own blocks and not being and thereby being uncensorable.
Is there a way to know what software miners are running on the network?
You can probably like reach out and sort of ask them, or like ask the mining pool operators. There aren't that many, so like it should be possible to ask them like, what are your plans for, like, maybe the mining pool operators are the people that are best able to push and communicate this to their sort of customers, why they should be looking into this and upgrading to this.
Yeah, because having some kind of like, I don't know, dominance kind of graph on the site, I'd find particularly useful to see like how many people are using it. Obviously, if that was like on the higher end, above 50%, it would kind of push the laggards towards adopting it potentially. But just stuff like that, like thinking of it on a kind of like similar to like the SegWit campaigns that have kind of happened throughout the years, and they kind of look at adoption and track who's adopting it and stuff like that. Just use some useful kind of data points to show on the website.
Maybe like the main benefit is like, or the security one, where like if you're not using Stratum V2, then anybody can be looking at like, so they can be, or your ISP can be reading your messages and to see like details of what your mining operation is doing, but they can also man in the middle you and steal your hash rate if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, those are all good points. So I guess, James, you want to speak? Go ahead.
Sorry, I joined a little late, and maybe this was covered earlier, but is like, are we looking at these pools of miners, or are we looking to get at some of these large mining companies like Core Scientific that just went public, or both?
So I guess we did cover that. In a way, it's mostly both manufacturers and also the pools are the ones that also need to be in a way aware of it and implement it. So both of them are actually our main target audience for this, if that was like what you were referring to. Okay. Do we have
Just
any
kind of,
more? Go, Steven.
I just want to think out loud for a second here about some of these like target audiences. We have users, in a sense, miners, people who are using mining equipment. We have pool operators, we have pool manufacturers. So it's like on the miner level, miner slash user level, they if you convince this audience of Stratum V2, then they can, you know, kind of exert pressure by saying, I want to join a mining pool that supports Stratum V2. And they can also say, I want to buy only mining hardware or try to buy mining hardware that comes natively with Stratum V2, which I know is not really a thing, but they say, I want to buy that. I would spend my dollars in that way. Or they could say that I want to buy hardware that allows me easily to switch to Stratum V2. So that kind of that's like the user exerting pressure on the pool and the manufacturers. And then the pools can kind of, you know, say to the manufacturers like a similar thing, like, I don't know if they actually have that pressure now that I think about it, because I think that I guess they kind of have to work with whoever wants to mine. But it seems in a way they're like the miners and the users kind of have that flexibility and that they can make the choice of the hardware and make the choice of the pool. It seems like the actual manufacturers are probably going to be the hardest ones to reach in this case. It seems like they may actually have a large say in this. So I guess I'm curious about the best figuring out the best way to kind of speak to the manufacturing audience about this.
Yes, I guess reaching out to them would be the most impactful, but also the hardest part of it. Ideally, it will go through them directly, and then we would avoid like all this. But I think you're right. It also needs to come from the end users as well, and people, you know, just realizing the benefits that they can have and security it brings to them. Because at the end of the day, we're all securing our wealth with all of this. So, do we really want to security unsecure protocols like miners making their, you know, do they really want somebody, you know, having to attack their revenue and things like that? That's also like logical, but yeah, it takes, I guess, time to persuade them. So I guess us trying to educate, I guess, you know, forcing or pushing would be a little bit of hard language for this, but I would say push it through education and for people realizing the importance of it. I think that's how all of the changes in the industry at the end, in my opinion, got adopted through education. And it's always hard making a change, but when people understand it, it's like, okay, it's logical. We really need to do this because it's better, and it's time to, you know, move forward. So, but yeah, how do we speak to all of these different audiences will be very interesting challenge, I think.
Different question. Sorry, real quick. How serious, corporate, or fun, creative should this be? How out there can it be?
Oh, we did say like something minimal and everything, but if there were like any examples, why not? Maybe actually we adopt this through laugh. I don't know. Maybe that can be approached, but I would say it should be like quite, because it's at the end of the day it's protocol, you know. So I would go a little bit more serious, but also if you think, you know, memeing the way through adoption is the way, why not? Let's try to create a mock-up for it, and then we will at the end. And anyway, our goal is to have multiple iterations, I think. Anyway, so I would say we should all go crazy and think of ideas, and then maybe we'll figure out. I don't know. Memes have power, so you never know. But personally, I would say keep it simple, but you never know.
I just want to point out that fellow Jitster has had their hand raised for a bit here.
Um, yeah, I wanted to clarify. When we talk about miners here, is it actually like a computer or a person?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I understood that you were asking about
I, I said I wanted to get a clarification when we're talking about miners. Are we talking of like a computer or like a group of persons that um
It depends. For example, in the specification or in the technical article, we try to talk about the mining device when we talk about the actual machine, but can mean both. And before I was using miner to talk about the person or the company that actually do the mining.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, do we have some more? Any more questions about Stratum?
I'm just curious why you specified you don't want to hype Stratum V2. Why like hyping is bad in that case? Or trying to sell it actually.
Well, because of the way it's perceived, it can be perceived like as a power play. So I would just keep it simple and do it through education. Because my impression from talking to all of these people, and some attacked me, some were yelling, some were like quite welcoming, some were like bigger miners, some were smaller. But yeah, I just think if you try to sell something hard and make it flashy and whatnot, I personally, and in my experience, the Bitcoin community doesn't really like when something is being sold or pushed through them. Like you need to be informed and you make your own decision based on the information you have. Like at the end of the day, it's the education and information that we want to push through. And I don't think making it flashy or just I don't know, selling it to people doesn't really sound right to me. At least that's how I am. And my impression from talking to all of these people was in a way relatable to the way I think about things as well. Because when you see something being sold hard in this industry or space, you're always like careful. Like, okay, if somebody's really trying to sell me on something, what are their motives? But if somebody is really trying to educate me about something and push this information in a clear way so that I can understand it, break it down, and it's a better approach in my opinion. But that's just me. I'm not sure if others agree or disagree. Feel free to tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay, basically you don't want it to make it sound like a scam. That's all. Right?
Well, not just a scam. We're not selling them anything. We're just developing software in a way which will improve basically their business and secure the network. And at the end of the day, it's better for all of us. So there is nothing to be sold here. It's just people developing open source software that others can use. And I guess it should be like that. If you try to tell them like, I don't know what exactly, if you have a specific example of how, we would sell it in a way, but to me, selling is like trying to really push it hard through other like influencer type of people, and then everybody hyping Stratum version 2. To me, it's more about people learning, realizing why it is good, maybe giving some thoughts, and examining, okay, why is it like that? Oh, okay, this makes sense. Well, then it will spread. It's a slower adoption path, but to me, it's always the right one in this industry.
I think it's like, I think over the past decade or so, Bitcoiners have developed kind of an allergy to people telling them what to do. So it's like, I see it like it's a really fine line, but the side of the line we want to be on is not I'm telling you to do this. It's I'm trying to make the information as clear and easy to understand as possible, and trying to make sure that the information is somewhere where you can find it so that you can decide if you want to do this or not.
Yeah, I understand. I was just like wondering because like just a website is not enough to sell something. So I was wondering why this was mentioned. We don't want to hype it. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps it was the birding, but in a way, it's mostly education. We are which is our goal, not to sell anything, because we have nothing to sell. So just the software that can be freely used. And so yeah. Do we have any more questions? We're like getting close to 1 hour mark, so just wanted for us to have enough time to also think of our next steps and what are we going to do next. Yes, Bosch, you did. I was thinking about that as well, if this should be a campaign, but to me, this kind of effort will take a little bit more time than a simple campaign for the BIP21 with the both lamp fallback, like, because at the end of the day, it's very focused group that we need to, in a way, educate, and I'm not sure if we can do it as a short-term campaign. In my opinion, it can be a little bit. This will take time. That's what I'm thinking. Hopefully it won't, but maybe it will. So, like, doing it in a way so that it is campaign, maybe, I'm not sure if it is the right way. And I was referring to the comment, by the way, that Bosch made in the chat about this being similar to Bitcoin QR.dev campaign. So, I mean, how do you guys feel? Are there any people here who would like to take on this project so that we can maybe collaborate on the Stratum channel that we made? How do you feel about it? Is there somebody who likes the idea behind this and would like to help with the design? Any takers?
Yeah, I would love to help, definitely.
Yeah, I see.
Me too.
I'll always
Nice.
help out a little bit.
Nice, nice. Soon, Filippo will have
Same.
more designers than devs. This is how things work.
Very cool.
This is awesome. So, what do you guys say that we continue maybe working a little bit asynchronously? Maybe you guys want to think about stuff first in Figma, or just, maybe you can share your ideas, how you feel about things from our conversation, and then we'll try to maybe structure it with a little bit of text and information. Then we can start wrapping around some design. I would say maybe the easiest thing would be the logo and maybe coloring, branding, and things like that. And then maybe from there we can develop a website. Christoph, since you're involved with the LDK and BDK as well, designing, come on, help us out. How do we proceed from here? What's the best? How was that done?
Yeah, with LDK and BDK, they're two sister websites, and the logos go together. Actually, the logos were a little bit different initially. So the template was basically set because they decided they want to use whatever the documentation tool was. So it's kind of set. So we discussed, what kind of content needs to go on the homepage, how to present it, but they were already kind of set that this is basically developer documentation. And then, I think I created several people created different logo directions, 3 or 4, and there were some discussions around it. One of them was all about emoji. The other one was, different. And then we ended up we had 3 directions, and we just picked this one here over, I don't know, a few weeks or so of a process. And the final logo here and the illustration style was picked because it's like, what do you call these little shapes? Tangram shapes. And LDK is kind of like you have these different pieces, these different modules of code that you can put together to create, your wallet or application. So that was the concept behind the visual identity. And then the illustrations were just very quickly done because I suck at illustrations. Maybe somebody else can get in more detail. I think it would be interesting with Stratum if there could actually be some information graphics in there too to really visualize those differences, because of how it improves things. Because I think sometimes when you just see numbers or explanations, it's very hard to grasp. When you see them visually, sometimes they just click right away. I think it'd be interesting to explore some information graphics with this one.
Yeah, so how about we start in a creative way? Let's say anybody can give some of their ideas, and then we will jump back and forth and see on the next call, maybe next week or the week after. It depends how we want to proceed with this. Maybe we can have some ideas and then brainstorm. Basically, let's call it brainstorming, and then I guess after we have the branding and the logo, we can continue to the website. But yeah, I don't think it's like exclusive. So you need to think of a website as you design logo probably as well, and the way each logo should also communicate things. But you guys are way better than this than I am. So I would just leave it to you to have fun designing, and I guess we will eagerly provide feedback. And I'm here to support you when it comes to understanding the protocol, maybe some of its features a little bit better. For example, there is a certain feature around which you want to express through logo design. I don't know. I'm just guessing how your design process here works. So I'm here to support you for any questions. And yeah, are there any maybe final words before we wrap this one up and decide to work on logos and things like that asynchronously and on channel on Slack?
So just to make sure I understand the next step will be like to brainstorm logos, or the next step would be just to put on papers like the content so we can have ideas for the logo. Just wondering.
In terms of text, I could probably work on that one on one of the Figma files. But do you need or?
Recording is on.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you guys work. That's all. Like, I can definitely like brainstorm logos based on the information, but I was just wondering, like, if the content like is set like on. I mean, you did it with your presentation already in a sense, like what we need to include like in the design bucket, so I can just take that and go from there to.
So I would do whatever you feel like is the right thing, whatever works for your design process. For me, designing things, I really want to understand things. So I'm also going to watch the presentations. I'm also going to look through the documentation, because my hunch is that a lot of times in projects there is something that you can pick up, that you can turn into a brand or a logo or something that's already there, and that usually turns out to be some of the best things, because it wasn't intentionally created to be kind of to influence the brand or logo or whatnot, but it's there, and it somehow captures the essence of it in some weird way. So I personally like to do research and then read through the content and all of this stuff. But if you feel like you need to go out in nature and daydream, and if that's your process, then do that too. So I think if you want to look at content, logo, whatever, just do your thing.
Yeah, let's try from chaos as usual. That's the best way to approach things, and YOLO as always. That's how we do things.
Yeah, and Pavlinix, I mean, you'll notice we kind of keep talking about
just a point on the like content side of things. Just a suggestion, but it would be good to like segment how you phrase the benefits into the different target audiences. So, for example, say Stratum has like privacy benefits. You don't want it to be like it has privacy benefits, they're good. You want to be like, okay, this section have like maybe a section, or it doesn't have to be like this, but you could have a section called like pool maintainers. So if you're a pool maintainer, you come to the site, you're obviously going to click on that because that's you, and it talks about all the benefits in the context of your application. So like it says why it's private for a pool miner, like why the benefits kind of are catered to them. It'd essentially be like having free sections that if you had the free target audiences that we mentioned earlier, the miners, manufacturers, and pool operators, which is some overlap there. But it'd be this similar content between them, but just in different contexts. So different target audiences, if that makes sense. So it's very late here. I'm sitting in the dark half asleep.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Also, Stephen was also about to say something. I'm not sure, Stephen.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. I was worried that my mic wasn't coming through. I was really just kind of responding to what Millie was saying, like, and kind of bringing back some of what me and Christoph were talking about earlier. A lot of times, we can just jump in and make a logo for this, right? But, as designers, a lot of times we like to do a little bit of research, figure out the vibe of, this particular sub-industry, do some strategy around what we're actually trying to say. Because like, if you just want a cool logo, I mean, you can just go to flaticon.com, type in mining, select an SVG of a cool pickaxe, and turn that into the logo, right? Like, so if you just want something that looks cool, you can just rip that some open source thing off of Google. But we're trying to make something here that really zeroes in on the idea of this thing and communicates a very specific message. Then we might do a little bit more research and strategy around that before we dive into the visuals. But like I said, if people want to jump in and start banging out visuals immediately, that's not a problem too. But just explaining where we're coming from as designers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Filippo, do you want to make a point of this or is everything?
No, I'm very happy that there are these all these people that want to help with the design, and I lost the last few minutes because my internet connection didn't work very well, and so thank you. And maybe I can try to put down some text about that content thing and to help you understand what the project is about and everything.
Yeah, perfect. I can also help with that, and we can always reuse it to add it to GitHub or whatever we need it as well. So that would be good. Filippo is excellent, by the way, with documenting things. I was very surprised when I started learning in very structured way of documenting and working with. So, and everything is on GitHub as well. So maybe logo needs to be structured as well. I'm joking, but yeah. So yeah, since we are already over the time, I'm here to answer any basic questions about the Stratum if you guys have it. If there are some more advanced, I will happily. We have a Discord chat for Stratum version 2. I will share it as well in the design Slack, and of course we can talk about it about the design itself on our Slack, and then we'll pass along feedback. As Christoph said, all of you guys have different approach to designing, so I don't want to limit you in any way. Just feel free to learn about the project, ask around, see maybe what kind of message would you like to send with the logo, with the design or anything, and then I'm sure like we will get a few ideas and then pick maybe a few of them and vote or do whatever we want. But just stay creative and try from chaos, as I said. Thanks for joining in. Let's continue asynchronously to discuss around things, and we'll schedule another call maybe when we have a few examples to share, and then we'll admire our design work. Thanks everybody for joining. This was awesome call, and I'm so happy that so many of you are interested in helping Stratum, because it's a project that really deserves a little bit more attention in this space, and hopefully with our help they will get the attention. So thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye guys.